For those of you I haven't met yet, I am a presenter, a coach, and a consultant, and now an author. I'm coming to you from Colorado. I work obviously all over the world. I have taught your levels as the EAL specialist, the pull-out teacher. What I've never done is be a third grade teacher where I live with the same third graders all day. So I have been the EAL specialist at elementary, but I've not been that third grade or fourth grade teacher. So that is a gift that you have. And so please push back on me because I have that other lens of a small group of students for a short period of time during the day and then send them back. And then I've spent time at secondary as well in the classroom. So I'd like to just start with this. And I can see your fingers. So if you could just hold up a finger. ¿Cómo estás? Ni hao ma, apa acabar, or que fahaluka. If you would just show a finger of like where you are on that here at this mid-morning on your Wednesday back in the new year. 5 is other. It could be anything. Where are you? Can I see fingers? We've got 2s and 3s and 4s and 3s. I love the meh. And I'm going to have Wade go ahead and explain his meh. So what I just did is actually a really powerful strategy for your students as well. Whether it's emojis or kid faces, and this is super fun. You can have your kids make faces of the different kind of emotions that they have and take pictures of your students and then label those out as 1 to 3, 1 to 5, 1 to 10, whatever they are. You can do a quick touch base in the morning because look what just happened in this room. I got a reality check. Right? You're in the middle of your workday. You've got kids going to recess. The room isn't working, right? You've got kids you're worried about. That shifts how I present. That shifts how I come to you. So what if you did this to your own students or with your own students and just touch base? And they don't need a lot of language to let you know what they're doing or how they're feeling. Even if they couldn't explain like Miriam and Wade did. And thank you, by the way, for both of you for being willing to go ahead and unmute and share what that number meant to you. So this is it. You've got the different languages there. You can learn to say, how are you in the languages of the students in your room. I've got Malaysian, Mandarin, Arabic, and Spanish up there. So whatever the languages are in your classroom, you can learn how to say, how are you? And they can learn how to, put a number up at least. So as we move on, our objective for tonight is all of these strategies that make the grade level content lessons comprehensible for your beginning level multilingual learners. And so we've already started that. You've already started the task for tomorrow. What else can I add? When I talk about implement, that word implement, I'm meaning to put into action, which is why you had an action already. You did it. You already implemented one strategy. When I talk about strategies, this is such a word in language circles and in education circles. It could be anything from a method to a teaching approach, but I'm talking about an action, something that you can do. The content lessons, these are your math, science, social studies, any of those contenidos. When I talk about comprehensible, I just mean understandable, like got it. And then finally, beginning level, this is the WIDA level 1 and 2. These are who our beginners are. They can say individual words, they can get out phrases, but they may not be at the complete sentence stage yet. So that's who I'm talking about with our beginners in this session. What I just did is your next strategy. Can I see thumbs up? How many of you already annotate your objectives? You already make your objectives like super clear with drawings, pictures, other words. Anyone? Ooh, we get to try it. So this is honestly what it looks like in real life, not when I'm on a, computer for adults. This is what it looks like. When I'm in the classroom with kids, this is what it looks like. Now Jay's going, oh yeah, I do that. Right? When it looks like this. So this is a screenshot from a colleague's board, but mine looks messier than this. But basically you write your objective on the board. I can write a narrative based on an image. Okay, so that's our task or that's our objective. And now I have to make that clear. So there's a pen or a pencil by write. Narrative is a story. I know they know the word story. Based on means about. An image is a picture. So I do a quick sketch of a picture. That's what I mean with annotating the learning target. During this demonstration lesson, I'll be modeling 3 principles for teaching newcomers or level 1 and 2 students. And these 3 principles, if you've ever been taught through SIOP, or if you've heard that term SIOP, the Sheltered Instruction Observation Protocol, this is SIOP light. It's crunched. So the first principle is everything I do, I'm going to try to make sure you understand. I'm going to increase comprehension, just like we did with adding a visual to your lesson and annotating that objective. So we're already moving toward this first principle a lot. The second principle is increasing interaction. So you will see times in this session where you're going to be speaking both in German and in English. That's why I was really saying, Lynn, please make sure they have a partner to talk to. So I can't do it without that partner interaction. And then finally, it's all about building the language. So I'm going to be developing academic language in German in 45 minutes. So that's my job, is like that you can get to grade level academic German in a short period of time. How do I do that? Through a lot of structured protocols. We're going to do the demonstration, then debrief everything I did so that you can transfer it to any of the lessons that you teach. All right. So that's our goal for the next time together. And I'm saying you're invited. And what that means is that if at any point, and Wade, I've got your back on this one, right? If at any point your mind is with your kids and you just lost the thread for a moment, but I happen to call on you, here's the answer you're going to give me. You ready, Wade? You're going to love this. Your answer is, oh, I'm coaching. Okay, I'm coaching you, which means you're in observing, and it's a very easy out. Okay, it means I'm not participating as a student. And then at any point you can jump back in and be a student. So what I want is that there's no stress. I want you just to experience this, just be part of it. And I will be calling on people, but if for whatever reason you're like, I have no idea, or I just lost it, or I was worried about a kid, or my phone buzzed, don't worry, just say you're coaching me. That means you're watching me for strategies. Good? Were we on? So you're truly invited to just participate as a student. Guten Tag, Klasse. Heute lernen wir die 4 Phasen von dem Wasserzyklus. So bitte schon mit dem Partner. Was lernen wir heute? Mit dem Partner? I love Wendy. She's like talking away. She's like, I'm talking to my partner. And her partner's like, I have no idea what we're supposed to do. I'm watching you guys. And Wendy's like, I'm all in. It's talk time. Got it. So this is the learning target. Obviously, there's a little clue on the graphic. Let me show you what happens if you annotate the learning target, right? This is just the learning target without annotation. It's as if I wrote on the board without any support. Watch what happens if I annotate it. I'm going to take about the same amount of time. Klasse, heute lernen wir über den Wasserzyklus. Klasse, das ist Wasser. Das ist Wasser. Und das ist ein Wasserzyklus. Ein Zyklus. Ja? Und hier ist unser Wasserzyklus. Das Wasser verdunstet und geht in die Wolke und dann fällt wieder als Regen in das Wasser. Das ist ein Wasserzyklus. Okay? So it took slightly longer. I annotated the learning target. And I could do that behind me too. You'll see me work behind me. So if you want to pin mine, I will be using this poster behind. So you'll want to make sure that you can see I'll be using this and taking the slides off. That's the difference between annotating the learning target and not annotating the learning target. Now, what I know is that all of you know this content. I also know that kids that are doing this content have experience with it. They have lived for 6 years, 7 years, 8 years, watched stuff come from the sky, right? They have experience just like you do. So we're going to build on that experience. I'm going to build the background. You will be reading a grade level text in 30 minutes. Are you ready? Here we go. So, Klasse, das ist das Wasser. Hier ist Wasser auch. Klasse, wer hat Wasser? Wer hat Wasser? Nicola, hast du Wasser? Hast du Wasser? Mhm. Ja, Klasse, trink Wasser. Trinkwasser, danke, gut. Ist es, ja, bitte, super, Wasser, Tee. Wendy, ist das Tee oder Wasser? Tee, ja, das ist Tee, das ist nicht Wasser. Oh gut, Lynn hat Wasser. Wir haben Wasser, gut. Wir haben Wasser im Ozean. Ja, wir haben Wasser im Ozean. Auf der Erde, hier ist die Erde. Das ist Südamerika, das ist Florida und haben Kanada, Kalifornien, okay. Und hier ist Atlantik, Ozean. Wir haben 4 Ozeane auf der Erde. Klasse. Was sind die 4 Ozeane? Was sind die 4 Ozeane mit dem Partner? Was sind die 4 Ozeane? Atlantik, mit dem Partner. Vicky, kannst du mir sagen, was ist ein Ozean? Atlantik, Indien, ja, Arktik. Sehr gut, Klasse. Das sind 4 Ozeane auf der Erde. Wunderbar. Und ist das Wasser im Ozean warm oder kalt? Ist das Wasser warm oder kalt?
Kalt.
Ja, Wendy, es ist kalt. Das Wasser im Ozean ist kalt. Aber die Sonne scheint auf das Wasser. Ist die Sonne warm oder kalt? Was ist das? Was ist die Sonne?
Wow.
Die Sonne ist warm. Die Sonne ist heiß. Ja, die Sonne ist sehr warm. Und die Sonne scheint auf das Wasser, ja? Und das Wasser wird warm. Hier oben auf dem Wasser wird das Wasser warm. Und aus dem Wasser kommt Dampf. Dampf. Klasse, mit dem Finger. Das ist Dampf. Das ist Dampf. Ist der Dampf warm oder kalt? Es ist warm. Der Dampf ist warm. Und der Dampf verdunstet. Der Dampf verdunstet. Klasse, mit den Fingern. Verdunstet. Sehr gut. Der Dampf verdunstet. Der Dampf verdunstet. Wohin geht der Dampf? Wohin geht der Dampf? Mit dem Partner. Der Dampf kommt aus dem Wasser. Wohin geht der Dampf? Mit dem Partner. Ah, richtig, klasse. Der Dampf geht in die Wolke. In die Wolke. Der Dampf geht nach oben. Der Dampf geht weit nach oben in die Wolke. Ja, der Dampf geht in die Wolke. Klasse, ist die Wolke warm oder kalt? Ist die Wolke? Ja, Nicola, die Wolke ist kalt. Die Wolke ist kalt. Klasse. Ist der Dampf warm oder kalt? Wendy, ja, richtig, Miriam. Der Dampf ist warm, richtig. Verdunstet und geht in die Wolke. Ja, die Wolke ist kalt. Der Dampf ist warm, die Wolke ist kalt. Meine Frage, Klasse, warum ist die Wolke kalt mit dem Partner? Die Atmosphäre ist hoch. Es ist hoch und es ist sehr kalt in der Atmosphäre. Und der Dampf ist hoch in der Atmosphäre. Und der Dampf ist kalt und der Dampf kommt zusammen. Ja, der Dampf kondensiert. Klasse, mit den Fingern. Kondensiert. Mit den Fingern. Kondensiert. Ja, der Dampf kondensiert. Es kommt zusammen, es kondensiert. Der Dampf kondensiert. In der Wolke. Die Wolke ist kalt, der Dampf kondensiert. In der Wolke. Ja. Klasse, mit den Fingern. Zeig mal Dampf. Mit den Fingern. Dampf. Der Dampf mit den Fingern verdunstet und geht in die Wolke, ja. Und richtig, Miriam, in der Wolke der Dampf kondensiert. Super, kondensiert. Der Dampf kondensiert in der Wolke. Toll. Und dann ist der Dampf so, der Dampf ist so schwer. Der Dampf fällt als Regen. Ja, der Dampf fällt. Ja, Regen und Schnee. In Colorado ist das Schnee. Ja, das ist der Dampf, ist Schnee. In Malaysia ist der Dampf Schnee. Der Regen, ist das Schnee oder ist das Regen? Regen, ja, das ist Regen. Das ist Niederschlag. Klasse, Regen und Schnee, das ist Niederschlag. Richtig, Wade, Niederschlag. Und der Niederschlag kommt aus der Wolke und geht in das Wasser. Es geht in das Wasser. Der Niederschlag geht in das Wasser. Und die Sonne scheint. Klasse, zeig mal Dampf mit den Fingern. Dampf. I don't have enough hands. You gotta help me. Danke. Finger, Dampf. Und der Dampf verdunstet. Gut. Und geht in die Wolke. Und in der Wolke ist kondensiert. Richtig. Und dann der Niederschlag fällt. Der Niederschlag fällt. Fantastisch, klasse. Das ist unser Wasserzyklus. Und jetzt sehen wir unseren Wasserzyklus. Wir schauen mal, das ist der Dampf. Der Dampf. Und der Dampf verdunstet. Auf dem See. Und hier ist der Dampf kondensiert mit den Fingern, klasse. Kondensiert, richtig, in der Wolke. Das ist kondensiert in der Wolke. Und dann der Regen fällt. Regen ist Niederschlag. Ja, Niederschlag. Und Schnee in Colorado. Der Schnee fällt. Ja, Schnee ist Niederschlag. Schnee ist Niederschlag. Das ist unser Wasserzyklus. You're going to get a chance to practice now with your fingers. And Nicola, you're going to be my partner. I'm going to say one of these and Nicola is going to do it and I'll be real helpful for her. Okay. So I'm just going to say it. Nicola, you're going to show with your hands what it is. Ready? Der Dampf. Give her snaps. Nice job. Verdunstet. Verdunstet. Richtig. Kondensiert in der Wolke. Toll. Niederschlag fällt. Oh, give Nicola some major snaps. Nice job. Now, Nicola, what happens? You were my partner. You're going to give it back to me. But I want you to challenge me. Mix them up. Don't do them in order. Okay? Mix them up. It's your turn to practice. You can put yourself on mute. I only was hearing Nicola. So everyone else is mute with your partner. The person that is speaking looks at the screen. The other person doesn't look at the screen. They just try the gestures. See if you can do it. Give it a go with your partner. Ihr braucht Papier. Ja, Papier und ein Stift. Und auf dem Papier bitte zeichne das Wasser. Das Wasser. Okay, so you're drawing with me now. If you've got paper in front of you. Das Wasser. I'm leaving the screen up and I'm doing it because it's sometimes hard to see my flip chart, even if it's only there. So I'll leave the screen up. Klasse, zeichne bitte die Sonne. So die Sonne ist hier. Die Sonne. Die Sonne. Super. Klasse, zeichne bitte eine Wolke. Die Wolke. Die Wolke. Zeichne eine Wolke. Super. Ja. Zeichne bitte, Klasse, der Dampf. Zeichne bitte der Dampf. Das ist Dampf. Das ist der Dampf. Und der Dampf, was macht der Dampf? Klasse, was macht der Dampf? Was ist das? Ja, Andrea, das ist verdunstet, richtig. Verdunstet. Der Dampf verdunstet, richtig. Oh, klasse, was noch? Was ist in der Wolke? Was ist in der Wolke? Ja, richtig, Andrea. Das ist kondensiert, ja? Der Niederschlag kondensiert. Richtig. In der Wolke, der Dampf kondensiert. Super. Richtig. Klasse. Was kommt aus der Wolke? Was kommt aus der Wolke? Ja, richtig. Andreas Garde ist Niederschlag. Richtig. Das ist Niederschlag. Niederschlag. Und das ist Regen und Schnee. Regen und Schnee kommt aus der Wolke. Ganz, ganz toll. Okay. Nicola, you're going to be my partner again. This is what your next partner activity is. Nicola, if you would hold your paper up to the screen so they can see what you're doing. I'm going to say, leg den Finger auf die Wolke. And Nicola, can you find that and just leg dein Finger auf die Wolke? Leg dein Finger auf die Wolke. Super. Leg dein Finger auf die Wolke. And then I'll tell her, leg die Finger auf das Wasser. Super. Richtig. And I'm going to say one, and then she'll tell me one. So if you're unmuted, Nicola, you can tell me where I should leg my finger.
Die Sonne.
Leg den Finger, try the whole thing. Give it a whole sentence.
Leg the finger on the Sonne.
Okay? That's what you're doing with your partner now. So one person, leg den Finger auf, leg den Finger auf. Just tell them where they should put their finger. Go back and forth with your partner. Go ahead. This is what you would see. Oh, before we even do the text, let's do a quiz. Let's see how you do. Are you ready? Frage Nummer 1. Was macht das Wasser warm? You have a word bank. You have a word bank. Was macht das Wasser warm? Go ahead, Jay. Oh, Jay, snaps for Jay. Let's go. Let's try another one. Was kommt von dem Wasser? Was kommt von dem Wasser? You've got a word bank. Was kommt von dem Wasser? Es ist der Dampf. Der Dampf. Der Dampf verdunstet. Der verdunstet is the verb, what it does. The Dampf is the thing. Ja? Der Dampf verdunstet. Sehr gut, Klasse. How about this one? Wo kondensiert der Dampf? Wo kondensiert der Dampf? Richtig, wunderbar, die Wolke. Was fehlt von der Wolke? Was fehlt von der Wolke? Go ahead. Niederschlag, wunderbar. Der Niederschlag fehlt von der Wolke. Ihr seid unglaublich. Wohin fehlt der Niederschlag? Der Niederschlag fehlt. Ja, sehr gut, wunderbar. Oder in das Wasser. Ja, in das Ozean oder in dem Wasser. Wunderbar, Klasse. You already answered all the questions. That would be at the end of the reading, but you did it already. Wunderbar. You're ready for this. Now I'm, uh-oh. Vicky, this happens to our kids too. They're like, I just had 30 minutes of another language and content, and I'm really tired. And then you showed me text. You can do this. I'm going to go sentence by sentence, and then you'll have a chance with your partner to make sense of it. Here we go. Es gibt Wasser im Ozean auf der Erde. Die Sonne macht das Wasser warm. Das Wasser verdunstet und geht in die Wolke als Dampf. Ja, Dampf in die Wolke. Die Wolke wird kalt, oh nein, kalt, und der Dampf kondensiert in der Wolke. Das kondensierte Wasser fällt als Niederschlag wieder auf die Erde. Im Winter ist der Niederschlag in Colorado oft Schnee. Im Sommer ist der Niederschlag Regen. With your partner, make sense of that paragraph. Use your entire linguistic repertoire. Do whatever you need to do to make sense of that paragraph. Go ahead with your partner. All right, let's see how you did with your partner. And this is just a quick comprehension check that you can't do necessarily with your students, but I'm going to just to show you how amazing you are. Miriam, will you take the first sentence and just tell us what it means? Amazing job. That's grade level text. It is not super simplified, but I have done some things to make it comprehensible. So what we're going to do now is deconstruct this lesson. We only have about a half an hour together still. And in that last half hour, we're going to take this apart and say, what are the strategies that I can use in other places, not just in this demonstration lesson. We're staying in English now. So the first step is just to write down personally what strategies worked for you. If you want to talk with your partner, you can, but I'd like you to come up with a big list. Everything you notice me doing, what are the strategies that helped you understand? And if you were starting to speak German, like I heard some of you doing, what helped you actually say the words? Take a quiet moment and jot down those strategies. All right, now is the time that we're going to chart, and I'll tell you how this works. We're going to start up at grade 5 and then just drop down. Each grade will give a report out of one strategy, and then we'll start over. So let's see how many we can get. I'm going to talk about those strategies and make it explicit, and then how you can transfer each of the strategies to all the other content that you teach. So let's go ahead and start with grade 5. If you'd like to unmute, that would be Andrea and Kay. So go ahead. That's called total physical response, what I was doing. Even beginners, first day in your class, Wade, the ones you're worried about, right? If they're brand new, they can show you by giving a gesture back. So they can show you they understand what you're saying by doing something. And whether that's open your book as a gesture or it's stand up and sit down. Most content at elementary, you can add a gesture. So in science, like we're sprouting, right? So there's a gesture to sprout. The kids will help you with gestures if you are fortunate enough to speak sign. If you know gestures for American or Malaysian or Mandarin sign, use sign. But if you don't know sign, it's okay for the students to help create those gestures. It really helps them with comprehension and learning the vocabulary. It's been around since the 1960s. So in the last almost, 60 years, this has been proven to be one of the most effective ways to learn new vocabulary. It's called total physical response and TPR. I hope that you can do some gestures for what's coming as soon as the kids come back in. When you leave this and you go, could I add a gesture? Now, right, it's a specific gesture that has meaning, that the kids are going to show you that they have meaning. So if you're doing shapes, you can do body shapes, or you can have shapes with your hands, or obtuse angles or acute angles. So you can do it in math, you can do it in science, you can create it in social studies, in languages. If you can add gestures, Not everything needs a gesture, but if you can add them, it's going to add a huge support. All right, let's go on to 4th grade. Go ahead and unmute, please, Wendy and Nevaeh. That's wonderful. You're right. It's the variety and the layers of visuals. Okay, so I had everything from the props, the drawings, and real life pictures. Oh, and I had with the teacup, what do we call them? Like icons, right? So each one of those hits the brain differently. And Wendy, you absolutely nailed it. It's all about how do I build repetition in different contexts so that the students hear those words without me doing it the same exact way every time. So for some of you, when I showed the real life pictures of the Dampf coming off the lake, that's when you went, oh, that's Dampf? Like you had a whole different view of what Dampf was. For some of you, it was when you saw the teacup gesture icon, like that didn't do it for you, right? It was, oh, you got your actual teacup and you could think about the steam coming off and you're like, I don't know what steam, I don't know what the word is, whatever. So there were layers of visuals. And yes, each time provided a repetition and each time provided different kind of input to help you understand the content and the concepts. So as you're looking at your own lesson plans, you're thinking of, if I'm only providing one visual, is it enough? Do I have a layer? Do I have a prop? Do I have a cartoon? Do I have a gesture? Do I have different ways of bringing that content across? Okay. Excellent. Let's go to grade 3. And if we could have Wade and Vicky, one of you respond. I'm going to chart that as some kind of partner work, and it's structured and supported. Wade, hugely important. And thank you for bringing that one up. So when I talk about structured, notice I modeled it with Nicola each time because she's my advanced speaker, right? So I had Nicola be my partner to model how I wanted one person goes, the next person goes. If it was your turn to speak German, you always had support. You either had that anchor chart that was on the screen with the 4 different parts of the water cycle, or you had your own labeled drawing with the sentence stem, leg den Finger auf. So you always had support and you always had a structure. Partner 1 does this, partner 2 does that. Go back and forth so that each partner had an equitable opportunity to participate in the lesson. So partner work was huge and that was structured and supported. Wade, you hit a very, very important one of these. So I'm going to ask you to think about your lesson plan for when the students come back in 20 minutes, when you go back to your kids. Do you have built-in partner interactions that are supported for language environment? So I would consider the purposeful partnerships. Who's the supportive partner? Maybe it's another beginner. And that might be appropriate for some partnerships to lower that filter. Sometimes you want a higher level speaker. So I can't tell you when each time, but you need to know your kids of who's partnering with whom when. And it's all about creating that comfort and ability to have success. So I'm really glad this one came up now. So we've got the gestures or total physical response. We've got the visuals and we've got partner work. Awesome. We're moving down to Miriam and Elaine, grade 2. We're doing it, but I started intentionally not matching with the words for many different language acquisition reasons. But one was to model what happens in language acquisition with kids is they're getting the sounds first, and then I put the letters to it. So just like you're learning about phonemic awareness and phonics and basic language development, we have to get those sounds, the phonemic awareness first, and then I added the words to it. But because you're literate and because English is a Germanic language, you were able to read pretty quickly, and that was supportive. That student needs some basic phonemic awareness and phonics. And when it comes time to talk about Wolke, she knows Wolke because I've said it, we've gestured it, right? Now I'm going to go, that's a Wolke. And I'm going to connect that to warum and wohin and was ist das? Yeah. So I'm going to connect it to all the other and suddenly she has learned that that's the sound. You got it, Miriam, right? Because we're going to connect with all the words she already knows. It's not in isolation, but I do need to make sure that she's going to get all those basic phonics. And that's going to happen in the intervention classes as well. But first, it's the sounds. Thank you for bringing that up. The labeled pictures are huge, and that's intentional. Is that things were labeled always. And Miriam, I don't know if you noticed it, but right from the beginning, vasa. So even when I introduce this, even for kindergarten students, I can label my visuals. It's not harming them. So I have all those things that are connected to text right from the beginning. And I've got all of the phonics built into things I already know. Right? So that was intentional, and I was labeling those props right from the beginning. Let's go all the way down to Nicola and Jay. Do you have something to add? We've got 4 biggies. So that I'm going to talk about in a minute. Thank you for that. The repetition is huge. Let's talk about that first. The research says that for students to get the concept of the water cycle, that we have water heating up, evaporating, condensing, and falling back to earth, that concept, that's 8 to 12 repetitions for the average learner. In my 30-minute demo, I probably hit about 8 repetitions of the whole water cycle, okay? That's the average learner. So our Speedy Gonzalez kids, GT, whatever you want to call them, they might get it in 2 or 3 reps. They're good. But how do I not bore them? I have to do those repetitions in different ways, building in the partner activities, the drawings, the acting it out, all those different ways, okay? But that's not the vocabulary. In order for you to get the vocabulary, in order for you to get Niederschlag, you're going to need Niederschlag probably 50 times. And you need it in lots of different contexts. It doesn't count for me to go Niederschlag, 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 right? It's not the flashcard Niederschlag that counts. It's Niederschlag in different contexts. It's Niederschlag as snow. It's Niederschlag as Regen. It's Niederschlag in Colorado and Niederschlag in Malaysia. And that you're thinking about that word, not just repeating it mindlessly. So we know that the repetition for the individual words is much, much higher. How do I get that? That's through that partner interaction. That's through the various repetitions that you've noticed in the different ways that you're hearing and then using that word. Let me talk about staying in English. If you have the gift of your students' languages, use the gift. Do not hold back. It is not a problem. But what my experience for my students and when I was teaching in the classroom is that I would have 12 different languages in the classroom. I have Spanish, I have German, I have a minimal amount of Mandarin, I have a minimal amount of other languages. I use what I have, but I know that I can make it comprehensible staying in the target language. And whether that target language is German or English, I can do it. Right. So does that help, Nicola? I'm not, translanguaging is fabulous if you can. Okay. And you can notice the language you were using with your partners. So there was time when you were using English. That was when you were making sense of the text. And there was time when you were practicing German, and that's when it was supported. So I have no problem with kids using their home language. It's just when are they doing it and for what purpose? So you were using German when I asked, do you remember the very first question about why is the cloud cold? And Nicola, you happen to have not been on mute at that time. What language did she use to describe why the cloud was cold? You were processing in your home language or in the strongest language. That's normal. And we want kids to feel okay about bringing that in. So if you have the gift of understanding your students and saying, yes, it's because the atmosphere is ganz hoch. I took what you said because I speak your language. I acknowledge that, right? And then I went on with it. What happens when kids don't speak English or a language that I can understand, and they want to tell me that the cloud is high up in the atmosphere, they do something like this, right? They show me that they know. And I'm like, yeah, es ist hoch in the atmosphere. And I give them the language back, but they're showing me that they understand through the gesture, through the TPR in the class. So thank you for that. You caught the biggies, the strategies modeled. I had a context, I had a story. Did anyone notice that I didn't just randomly give you the word precipitation from the beginning? We didn't pre-learn precipitation. When did you learn Niederschlag? Where did Niederschlag come up?
At the
At the
end,
very end. Yeah.
At the end, where it comes in the cycle. So I don't front load in the sense of here's a list of all the words that are coming in the unit or in the text, and then let's learn those ahead of time. No, 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 no. It came up when it came up. We started with water and I added the Dampf in the context of the story or the event. Now, how this works with your story is that as new words come up in the context of your story, you teach it right there in the context of your story because it's connected. What we know about vocab instruction and about language instruction is that that random list of vocabulary words doesn't stick. But what does stick is when it's in a context that I can glue, right? Dampf, together with verdunstet, together with kondensiert and Niederschlag, in the whole Wasserzyklus. So that was a big one. We didn't, and we had all of that language before we read the text. Lots of exposures that came up, repetition. Variety of visuals, nice job. That was number 2 here. So you guys marked that one. Oh, no one noticed that I had realia. I had actual water. We started with the actual thing you all had to drink. We had gestures and acting out. We got that one. Cognates. I don't know if some of you caught that. There's a lot of cognates in German and English. So you were like kondensiert is like condensed, right? So highlighting that and making sure you understand that. I ask a lot of questions. Is the cloud cold? Is the sun cold or hot, right? Warm or hot? Is the Dampf warm or hot? So I was asking lots of questions using the language. That's a way to build in the repetition. It's also a way, Nicola, when you ask about kids that aren't willing to speak, notice the questions I was asking. Is it hot or is it cold? And I gave you the possibility of answering with a gesture. Right? So if we can give that to our students, they start to participate and realize I'm a full participant in the class. So I will ask my students, I give them choices all the time. Do you want the blue or the orange? Right? So if they reach for the orange, they're beginners, they just reach for the orange. They don't say orange. I say, oh, you want the orange? Here you go. Right? So I'm always giving choices, hoping that they'll say blue or orange, or at least one word. Do you see what I'm going? But it's supported. They only have to listen for 2 things. And then integrating that partner talk. Nice job, Wade. You pulled that one out. That was on here, the partner work. So you guys hit the vast majority, but I wanted to highlight this idea of the context, the story, that experience that we had acting out the water cycle before you got to text was a big one. What's the sequence? How did I do this? That can be done in any lesson, even your reading lessons. So you have a story that you're about to do. Is there an experience that you can do with that story? Could you do a quick video clip, a quick acting out, a quick, something? It could be very big, like a field trip. Is there an experiment? Is there something that you could do as a class to have an experience before they get to the text? That builds the background and the vocab in the context. Okay, so that's the number 1 that I started. We started with all of this together, right? Before we got to the text. So I would like you to consider that. The second step was, this is where the vocab came in. We talked about that with the concepts and the vocabulary. Remember the partner work? I gave you the key vocabulary. You went back and forth with your partner. And we answered questions about that using the vocab before we ever got to text. Then we actually drew, and this is where Nicola, somebody was saying, yeah, like writing that out. We co-constructed this. I asked questions like, what happens in the vocab? And I love, Andrea, I was watching you, you're up there going like this, right? This is what happens in the vocab. I'm like, yes, it kondensiert. And then I write kondensiert. And so we co-constructed that together, basically writing it all out on the chart before you got to the text. There you're learning the vocabulary, you're writing it together. This is where that language experience approach comes in. Jay, I'm sure you're familiar with it. It's basically what I did was language experience approach. Finally, you read. What did I do to the text? What did I do to make the text easier to read? Go ahead, Wendy.
Sorry, she asked me.
You had some translations and different colors and some icons.
So the icons, that's like a rebus story, right? I dropped them right into the text. The different colors, I'll tell you what that's about. The words in blue, I just translated. The words in orange, I'm showing you are basically cognates. Look at us, as, oft, often. I'm showing you to look for similarities between the two languages. The other ones I didn't do because you knew them, right? So I can do this. Now, this is grade level text. I'm not simplifying the text. I'm making it accessible to you. I'm giving you support with reading that text, okay? It's called engineering it. And we can work on that next time. I can show you how to do it for different levels. Now, this is something we didn't get to do, but that Miriam noted, and it might be something we want to do the next time. I have to leave time to talk about that because I know you've got to go get your students. But this is where we focus on a language form. So we could talk about the capitals, like why are all nouns capitalized? We could talk about prepositions. We could create something called a sentence pattern chart where you now have, instead of sentence frames, you actually have a sentence pattern chart where you can put together lots and lots of sentences based on this chart. We're going to develop language at this stage. And then finally, you get to write about it. That would be the final stage in my lesson, is that you would write using the chart, you would use the sentence pattern chart, and you would write independently, even as a beginner, because you've got lots and lots of supports already. So that is like the structure that I use to put together to make sure there's comprehension for students. I know that that is like a lot. You have the handout where I have this sequence there. Thank you all so much. It was really, really lovely to work with all of you. Have a fabulous day.